Dawn broke over the fertile plains of Kepler 186f, painting the sky in shades of deep crimson. The morning dew sparkled on the vast fields of hybrid wheat that stretched toward the horizon. In the distance, the gleaming spires of New Seoul rose like silver needles against the alien sky. Hannah loved these early mornings. At 8 years old, she found joy in the simple things, the way the colony's artificial atmosphere made the clouds swirl in strange patterns, or how the automated harvesters moved through the fields like giant, gentle animals. Her father, Jin-ho, always said she had a farmer's heart, just like him. "Hannah, bring me the diagnostic tablet." Jin-ho called from where he was checking one of the harvesters. His weathered hands moved expertly over the machine's control panel. Hannah ran to him, her boots leaving small prints in the soft soil. The tablet nearly slipped from her small hands as she handed it over, but she caught it just in time. "Careful there, little one." Jin-ho smiled, ruffling her hair. "Your mother would have both our heads if we broke another one." In the colony's central control tower, Yuri monitored the morning's crop yields with practiced efficiency. The numbers looked good, better than good actually. The modified wheat was thriving in the alien soil, adapting just as the scientists had predicted. She allowed herself a small smile. Their family's decision to join the colonial program had been the right one. High above the planet's atmosphere, Imperial Commander Dax stood on the bridge of his warship, the Eternal Dominion. His silver-scaled skin reflected the starlight as he studied the redouts from the planet below. His lip curled in disgust at what he saw. Humans, he spat the word like a curse. They breed like vermin, spreading across the galaxy with no regard for proper protocol or imperial authority. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vex, approached with careful deference. "The colony appears to be primarily agricultural, Commander. Our scans show no military installations." Dax's 4 eyes narrowed as he watched the energy signatures from the surface. The harvesting machines were putting out unusual readings that, to his war-trained mind, could only mean one thing. "They're hiding weapons among their farming equipment," he declared, ignoring the doubt in his lieutenant's expression. "These humans think they're clever, but 10,000 years of imperial rule has taught us their kind cannot be trusted." Back on the surface, Hannah was helping her father calibrate the harvester's cutting height when she saw it. A strange shimmer in the sky, like heat waves on a summer day. Jin-ho noticed it too, his expression changing from curiosity to horror as understanding dawned. "Yuri," he screamed into his communicator. "Emergency protocols. Get everyone to the..." The first orbital strike cut through the atmosphere like a knife through silk. Hannah barely had time to feel her father's arms wrap around her before the world turned to fire. The harvester beside them exploded as the energy beam touched it, sending shrapnel in all directions. In the control center, Yuri watched in helpless terror as the emergency signals bloomed across her screens. She slammed her hand on the colony-wide alarm, but it was already too late. Commander Dax watched with cold satisfaction as his ship's weapons turned the human settlement into ash. "Log it as a preemptive strike against unauthorized weapons development," he ordered. "Note that the humans were warned but failed to comply with Imperial regulations." "Sir," Lieutenant Vex's voice wavered slightly. "The energy signatures. They were just farming equipment. The verification protocols." "I don't need verification to recognize a threat." Dax cut him off. "The Empire has survived this long by striking first and decisively. These humans needed to learn their place." The orbital bombardment lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, half of New Seoul was nothing but smoking craters. The wheat fields burned, and the harvesters lay as twisted, molten wreckage. Where Hannah and her father had stood, nothing remained but scorched earth. In the partially collapsed control center, Yuri pulled herself from the rubble, blood running down her face. Her screens were shattered, but one emergency beacon still functioned. With trembling hands, she activated it, sending a signal that would reach Earth in a matter of hours. Commander Dax was already preparing his report to Imperial High Command as his ship moved away from the planet. He noted with mild irritation that some of the colony had survived his attack, but decided it wasn't worth the energy for a second bombardment. After all, these were just humans. What could they possibly do in response? As his ship jumped to hyperspace, Dax couldn't know that his actions had just sealed the fate of the Empire he served. In his arrogance, he had made the one mistake the Empire could not afford. He had killed a human child, and in doing so, had awakened something his kind had never truly understood: human vengeance. The message arrived at Earth Central Command at 3:47 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Within minutes, every major military and political leader on the planet was awakened. The footage from New Seoul's surviving cameras played in command centers worldwide, scenes of destruction that would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy. Admiral Song stood motionless in her office at Pacific Command, watching the recording for the 12th time. The Imperial warship's attack was precise, methodical, and completely unprovoked. Her hands clenched into fists as she watched little Hannah disappear in a flash of light, along with hundreds of other colonists. "Admiral," her aide spoke softly from the doorway. "The United Earth Council is ready." The council chamber in Geneva was packed to capacity. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in tense silence as Admiral Song took her place at the podium. The massive screens behind her showed the devastation of New Seoul in stark detail. 24 hours ago, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. The Galactic Empire murdered 342 human colonists. Among them was Hannah, an 8-year-old girl whose only crime was helping her father with the morning harvest. The Imperial diplomat stood in his designated place, his silver skin gleaming under the chamber's lights. He towered over the human officials around him, his 4 eyes blinking in what seemed like boredom. "The Empire has reviewed your complaint," he stated, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless English. "The incident has been classified as a regrettable error during routine security operations. The matter is considered closed." Admiral Song's voice remained steady, though her eyes blazed. "Regrettable error. Your ships bombed an agricultural colony without warning or provocation. The death of one primitive offspring hardly warrants Imperial attention," the diplomat replied, waving a long-fingered hand dismissively. "The Empire has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We do not answer to lesser species." The chamber erupted in shouts of anger. The Chinese representative had to be physically restrained by his colleagues. But it was the quiet voice of the African Union spokesperson that cut through the chaos. "Then you have made your final mistake." Within hours, the emergency protocols were activated. For the first time since its creation, the United Earth Council voted unanimously on a resolution. The text was simple: Earth is now at war with the Galactic Empire. In Neo Seoul, the massive research facilities that had been secretly studying alien technology for decades switched to full military production. Scientists who had been reverse engineering captured Imperial tech worked around the clock, fueled by a mixture of caffeine and righteous anger. The shipyards of Nova Shanghai, hidden beneath the East China Sea, hummed with activity as dormant production lines sprang to life. Massive skeleton crews of ships began to take shape in the underwater facilities. These weren't the clumsy vessels the Empire believed humans capable of building. These were weapons of war that would make the Empire regret its arrogance. Admiral Song walked through the Lunar Command Center, watching as personnel from every nation worked side by side. Russians and Americans coordinated fleet movements. Chinese and Indian engineers finalized weapon designs. European and African tactical experts planned strike strategies. "They think we're primitive," she said to her staff. "They think we're weak and divided. They don't understand what happens when humans unite against a common enemy." In orbit, the first of Earth's new warships was nearing completion. Its hull was made of materials the Empire had never conceived of. Its weapons operated on principles their scientists had overlooked. It was a testament to human ingenuity and determination. The Imperial diplomat made one final appearance before leaving Earth. "You cannot hope to stand against the Empire," he declared. "Your species will be fortunate to survive our response to this defiance." Admiral Song watched him leave, then turned to the council. "He's wrong," she said simply. "The Empire has ruled through fear and technological superiority for 10,000 years, but they've grown complacent. They'd forgotten what it means to face an enemy with nothing left to lose." She brought up a hologram of Hannah's last known image, a smiling child helping her father in the fields of a distant world. "They killed our children," she continued, "and now they'll learn why every species in the galaxy knows not to harm a human child." The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, but as humanity's war machines stirred to life, as ships were built and weapons were forged, as soldiers trained and plans were made, one thing became clear: the Empire's reign was about to face its greatest challenge, not from a mighty alien race or a coalition of worlds, but from a primitive species that had simply been pushed too far. 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, hidden from even the most advanced Imperial scanning technology, the Prometheus Project's main laboratory hummed with activity. Dr. Kita walked through the gleaming facility, his footsteps echoing off polished metal walls that contained humanity's greatest secrets. 20 years ago, when they recovered the first piece of Imperial technology from a crashed scout ship, everyone said it was impossible to understand, let alone improve. Kita smiled at the memory as he passed rows of reversed-engineered Imperial devices, each modified and enhanced by human innovation. "Dr. Kita," a young researcher rushed up to him, tablet in hand. "Dr. Sunmei needs you in Quantum Lab 3 immediately. She says it's urgent." Keita quickened his pace. In all their years working together, Sunmei had never used the word urgent lightly. The Quantum Labs were their most secure facilities, buried even deeper than the main complex. The security scanners hummed as they verified his identity, doors hissing open one after another. He found Sunmei standing in front of a massive holographic display, her usual neat appearance disheveled from what had clearly been a long night of work. The display showed something that made Kita's breath catch, an Imperial sensor array, but the signals it displayed were doing impossible things. "Watch this," Sunmei said without preamble. She typed a command into her console, and the holographic sensors went completely dark. "Now look at the actual sensor." She pointed to a captured Imperial device in the corner of the lab, its lights blinking steadily. "It's still active," Kita observed, "but the display shows nothing." Sunmei's tired face broke into a grin. "We're not blocking the signals. We're bending them around our ships completely. The sensors work perfectly. They just can't see what's right in front of them." Keita walked around the display, studying the data streams. "How?" "The Empire's quantum detection grid is based on principles they've refined for thousands of years. That's exactly why this works," Sunmei explained, pulling up another display. "They've spent so long perfecting their technology that they never considered alternative approaches. We found a way to create quantum interference patterns that their sensors interpret as empty space." The implications were staggering. Imperial sensors were the backbone of their military superiority. Their ships could detect a shuttle at the edge of a solar system, or so they thought. "Show me the test data," Kita requested, and Sunmei brought up video from their trials. A small prototype vessel, barely larger than a fighter, completely disappeared from Imperial scanning systems while remaining fully visible to human sensors. "The Empire believes their technology is perfect," Kita said softly, watching the test footage again. "That will be their downfall. They stopped looking for better solutions centuries ago." Word of the breakthrough spread through the facility. Teams that had been working on weapons, shields, and propulsion systems began integrating Sunmei's quantum cloaking technology into their designs. The massive shipyards above them would soon begin producing vessels that could strike without warning, disappear without trace. "There's more," Sunmei said, leading Kita to another lab. "We found a way to use their own sensor networks against them." She brought up a new display showing Imperial communication relays. Their quantum entanglement communication systems are incredibly sophisticated, but they're also predictable. We can inject false data streams that their systems will accept as genuine. Kaita watched as Sun Mei demonstrated how they could make Imperial sensors detect phantom fleets, false weapons signatures, even non-existent planets. We can blind them, confuse them, and make them see exactly what we want them to see. In the weeks that followed, the Prometheus project worked around the clock. Teams of scientists and engineers integrated the new technologies into weapon systems, defense platforms, and starship designs. They were creating something unprecedented, a fighting force that could match Imperial technology, while operating in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. They think they know everything about warfare in space, Kita told his team during a briefing. They think they've discovered every possible way to fight among the stars. But humans have something they lost long ago: creativity. We don't just use technology, we reimagine it. The first full-scale tests of their new systems were conducted in the asteroid belt. A fleet of Earth ships, equipped with the quantum cloaking technology, executed complex maneuvers that would have been suicide against Imperial sensors. But the captured Imperial detection equipment they used for testing saw nothing but empty space. As Kita watched the test footage with Admiral Song, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of pride and sadness. All of this because they killed a child, he said quietly. Admiral Song nodded. They thought we were primitive, harmless. Now they'll learn that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to adapt, to innovate, to overcome. And when we're protecting our children, there's nothing we can't do. Deep beneath the Pacific, the forges of humanity's vengeance burned bright, preparing weapons that would shake an empire that had grown too confident, too rigid, too certain of its own superiority. The empire had ruled for 10,000 years, but they had never faced an enemy quite like humanity. The underwater shipyards of Nova Shanghai fell silent for the first time in months. Where there had been constant noise and activity, now there was only the quiet hum of power systems and the gentle movement of water. The ships were ready. Captain Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the EFS's Vengeance, her heart pounding as she watched the massive bay doors above begin to open. Moonlight filtered through the rising water, catching on the dark hull of her ship. The Vengeance was unlike anything humanity had built before, a perfect fusion of stolen Imperial technology and human innovation. All systems report ready, Captain, her XO reported from his station. Ghost Fleet is signaling green across the board. Jiwoo nodded, her fingers brushing against the memorial patch on her uniform sleeve, a small image of Hana, the child whose death had set all of this in motion. Every ship in the fleet carried the same symbol. Start emergence sequence, she ordered. Let's show the Empire what humanity can do. The Vengeance rose from its underwater berth like a Leviathan awakening. Water cascaded from its hull as it broke the surface, followed by dozens of other vessels. To any Imperial sensors watching Earth, the ocean remained empty and still. The quantum cloaking systems worked perfectly. The bridge crew worked with practiced precision, each member knowing that they were making history. Humanity's first true war fleet, not the clumsy vessels they had allowed the Empire to see, but ships that could match or exceed Imperial technology in every way. Fleet is in formation. Communications reported. Admiral Song is signaling from the flagship. The Admiral's hologram appeared on the bridge. Captains of the Ghost Fleet, she began, her voice carrying to every ship. Today we begin our response to Imperial aggression. They believe they know everything about us. They believe we are primitive and predictable. They are wrong. Jiwoo watched as her tactical display showed the fleet moving into jump formation. The Vengeance's engines hummed with power, using principles that Imperial scientists had never thought to explore. They had perfected faster-than-light travel millennia ago and stopped looking for alternatives. Humanity had found those alternatives. First jump coordinates locked in. Navigation announced. Quantum signature is masked. Imperial sensor nets will read this as normal space distortion. Ghost Fleet, execute jump on my mark. Admiral Song's voice was firm with determination. Remember why we fight. Remember Hana. Remember all those who died because of Imperial arrogance. The stars blurred as the fleet made its first jump. When they emerged, Earth was light years behind them. Jiwu's tactical display showed Imperial traffic in the distance, merchant ships and patrol vessels going about their business, completely unaware of the human fleet hiding in plain sight. Weapon systems are hot but masked, Tactical reported. We're reading as background radiation to their sensors. Jiwu walked to the forward viewport, watching an Imperial cruiser pass within visual range of their position. The enemy ship's sensors swept right through them, finding nothing but empty space. The Empire's greatest strength, their absolute confidence in their technology, had become their greatest weakness. Second jump coordinates received from flagship. Navigation called out. Moving deeper into Imperial space, the Ghost Fleet moved like shadows through the Empire's domain, passing undetected through their most heavily guarded systems. Each ship carried weapons that could crack Imperial shields like eggshells, using frequencies their defenders had never thought to guard against. Captain, her XO spoke quietly beside her. The crew's ready. They've trained for months, but this is real now. We're really going to war with the Empire. Jiwu turned to face her bridge crew, seeing the mixture of determination and nervousness on their faces. The Empire has ruled through fear for 10,000 years, she said. They've forgotten what it means to face an enemy who isn't afraid. They killed our children and expected us to accept it. Instead, we're bringing the war to them. The fleet continued its advance into Imperial space, a vengeful ghost army moving through the Empire's gates. Soon, the Empire would learn that their 10,000 years of unchallenged dominance had come to an end. Humanity had emerged from its cradle, not as the primitives they expected, but as something the Empire had never faced before. An enemy they couldn't see coming. On the Vengeance's bridge, Jiwu watched the Imperial worlds pass by, each one unaware that humanity's retribution was already among them. The Ghost Fleet moved silently through the stars, carrying with them humanity's answer to Imperial cruelty. The war for justice was about to begin. The Imperial fortress world of Centauri Prime glowed with power against the darkness of space. Orbital defense platforms formed concentric rings around the planet, their weapons primed and ready to destroy any threat. For 1,000 years, no enemy had ever breached these defenses. Commander Dax stood at his command station, surveying his domain with the same arrogance that had led him to destroy the human colony months ago. The incident had earned him a promotion and assignment to this prestigious post. After all, decisive action against inferior species was always rewarded in the Empire. Status report, he demanded of his subordinates. All systems nominal, Commander. Lieutenant Vex responded. Defense grid is at full power. Long-range sensors show no. He paused, frowning at his display. That's strange. There's a momentary fluctuation in the quantum field. Probably another sensor ghost, Dax dismissed. The humans have been making clumsy attempts to probe our defenses for weeks. Their primitive technology. The space around Centauri Prime erupted with fire. Where there had been nothing, suddenly dozens of ships appeared, their black hulls absorbing light like patches of void. The Ghost Fleet had arrived. Admiral Song's voice cut through every Imperial communication channel. This is humanity's response to your murder of our children. The Vengeance struck first, its weapons firing on frequencies that slipped through Imperial shields like they didn't exist. Defense platforms exploded in silent blossoms of fire. Captain Jiwu's crew worked with cold efficiency, targeting command and control nodes with surgical precision. Impossible. Dax screamed as his displays showed shield after shield failing. They're primitives. They can't have this level of technology. The Ghost Fleet moved like a deadly dance, each ship appearing and disappearing at will. Imperial gunners fired at empty space, while human vessels struck from completely different vectors. Everything the Empire knew about space combat was being proven wrong. "Sir," Vex's voice cracked with panic. "Their weapons, they're using quantum resonance frequencies we never thought could be weaponized. Our shields aren't just failing, they're being turned against us." The orbital rings of Centauri Prime, pride of Imperial engineering, were being systematically dismantled. Ships that had cost fortunes to build and were considered invincible crumbled under attacks they couldn't even detect properly. Admiral Song's flagship emerged from nowhere directly in front of Dax's command center. "Remember New Seoul," her voice transmitted again. "Remember Hannah." Dax watched in horror as his supposedly impregnable fortress began to fall apart around him. The humans he had dismissed as primitive were using technology in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. They didn't just match Imperial technology. They had transcended it. "Get our ships in formation," he ordered. "Standard Combat Protocol Alpha." "Sir, our ships can't maintain formation," Vex interrupted. "Their attacks are coming from everywhere. We can't track them. We can't target them. They're using our own sensor networks against us." The Ghost Fleet's attack was precisely choreographed. Each strike weakened the Imperial defenses in preparation for the next. They had studied their enemy well, understanding that the Empire's rigid tactical doctrine would be their undoing. "Send the distress signal," Dax commanded. "Summon the Imperial fleet." But even as the quantum transmission was sent, human ships were already disrupting it, filling Imperial communications with phantom signals and false data. Help would not arrive in time. Captain Jiwoo's voice reached Dax's command center. "You killed our children and called it a regrettable error. Now you learn what happens when humanity decides to show you real regret." The Vengeance's main weapons fired again, and Dax's supposedly indestructible command center began to break apart. The mighty fortress of Centauri Prime, pride of the Empire, was being reduced to rubble by an enemy they had fatally underestimated. "How?" Dax whispered as he watched his world burn. "How did primitives do this?" The answer came in the form of more explosions as the Ghost Fleet continued their devastating attack. The Empire had ruled through technological superiority for so long they had forgotten one crucial fact. Technology was only as good as the imagination of those who wielded it. And humanity's imagination had no limits, especially when driven by the need for justice. The Empire was learning, too late, that dismissing humans as primitives had been their greatest mistake. As Centauri Prime's defenses crumbled, the message was clear. This was just the beginning of humanity's revenge. The Grand Chamber of Imperial High Command had never witnessed such chaos. The massive holographic display in the center of the room showed a sea of red indicators, each one representing another Imperial defeat. Senior commanders argued among themselves as reports of human victories continued to pour in. High Commander Vax, supreme leader of Imperial military forces, watched in disbelief as another fortress world went dark. His silver scales had lost their luster, dulled by weeks of sleepless cycles spent trying to counter human tactics that seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. "Impossible," he muttered, watching the replay of the latest battle. A human fleet had appeared inside the defensive perimeter of their strongest base world, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before their ships could even turn to engage. "They're violating every principle of space combat we've established over 10,000 years. Latest intelligence update, High Commander." An aide approached, her scales pale with fear. "The humans have developed some form of quantum manipulation we've never seen before. They're not just hiding from our sensors, they're bending space itself." The display changed to show footage from their latest defeat. Imperial ships, the pride of their civilization, fired their weapons at empty space, while human vessels struck from completely unexpected vectors. Their rigid battle formations, unchanged for millennia, were worse than useless against an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. "We've lost contact with the 7th Fleet," another commander reported. "The humans didn't destroy them. They somehow turned our own sensor networks against us. The entire fleet is chasing sensor ghosts through the Carina sector." High Commander Vax slammed his fist on the control panel. They were primitives. Their technology was barely sufficient for interstellar travel. How did they advance so quickly? The answer came from an unexpected source. A junior analyst who had been studying human history. "Sir, I believe we fundamentally misunderstood their nature. The humans didn't advance. They were hiding their true capabilities all along, studying us, finding our weaknesses." The display shifted again, showing Admiral Song's flagship emerging from nowhere to destroy another Imperial stronghold. Her tactics were unlike anything they had seen in 10,000 years of warfare. The humans didn't just fight. They innovated in the middle of battle, adapting their strategies faster than the Empire's rigid command structure could respond. Another transmission from their command. Communications announced. The message was simple: remember Hannah. The name had become a curse among Imperial commanders. The child whose death had awakened this terrible enemy. Every human ship carried her image. Every strike was dedicated to her memory. The Empire, which had killed countless beings in its history, had never faced an enemy so driven by the death of a single child. "We must adapt," Vax declared, but even as he said it, he knew the Empire's greatest weakness. They had forgotten how to change. Their technology, their tactics, their entire way of thinking had remained static for too long. The humans, in contrast, seemed to introduce new innovations with every battle. Reports continued to arrive. Imperial supply lines disrupted by attacks they couldn't detect, defense systems bypassed by weapons operating on principles they barely understood, entire fleets scattered by phantom signals in their own communication networks. "They're not just defeating us," the junior analyst observed quietly. "They're dismantling everything we believed about warfare. Our assumptions about technology, about tactics, about our own superiority. They're proving all of it wrong." High Commander Vax watched another battle replay, seeing his mighty ships reduced to wreckage by an enemy that seemed to appear and disappear at will. The Empire had ruled through fear and technological superiority for 10,000 years. Now, faced with an enemy that had transcended their understanding of technology itself, that rule was crumbling. "Send word to the Imperial throne," he finally ordered. "The military situation is—" He paused, the words bitter in his mouth, "untenable. We recommend immediate diplomatic contact with the human leadership." The Empire was faltering, its mighty fleets reduced to hiding in their own territory, its commanders paralyzed by an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. And still the humans advanced, their ghost fleet striking with terrible precision, each attack a reminder of the price of Imperial arrogance. The war they had started by killing a child was about to change the galaxy forever. The Imperial throne room dwarfed even the mightiest chambers on Earth. Crystalline pillars rose hundreds of meters into the artificial sky, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 artificial suns. The Empire had built this place to humble visitors, to remind them of their insignificance before Imperial might. But today, the humans showed no sign of being humbled. Admiral Song led the Earth delegation down the long pathway to the Imperial throne, her steps measured and confident. Behind her walked Captain Jiwoo and Dr. Kita, representing humanity's military and scientific achievements that had brought the Empire to its knees. The Emperor himself waited on the crystalline throne, his silver scales dulled with age, his 4 eyes watching the approaching humans with a mixture of fear and fascination. Around him, the Imperial court stood in tense silence, their usual elaborate ceremonies forgotten in the face of this unprecedented situation. "The humans come before the eternal throne," the court herald announced, his voice trembling slightly. "They come in." He paused, struggling with the unfamiliar concept, victory. Admiral Song stopped at the designated spot, but didn't bow as protocol demanded. Instead, she activated a hologram, the image of Hannah, smiling, helping her father with the harvest on that fatal day. The image floated between humanity's representatives and the Imperial throne. "We could destroy your empire." Admiral Song's voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. Your defenses cannot stop us. Your fleets cannot fight us. Your worlds lie open to our attacks. She gestured to Dr. Kita, who activated another hologram showing the Ghost Fleet's capabilities. The Imperial Court watched in stunned silence as the technical display showed how completely humanity had surpassed their understanding of physics and technology. Ships appearing inside their strongest shields, weapons that turned their own defenses against them, communication systems that bent space itself. But destruction is not our way. Song continued. We want justice, for Hana, for all our dead, and guarantees it will never happen again. The Emperor stirred on his throne. You have proven your strength, his translator conveyed. Name your price for peace. Captain Ji-woo stepped forward, her voice steady. Not a price. A change. Your empire has ruled through fear and arrogance for 10,000 years. That ends today. Dr. Kita presented the document they had prepared, the Hana Protocols. New laws, new safeguards, new ways of thinking. No more casual destruction. No more dismissing lesser species. No more killing children. The Emperor's advisors rushed to protest, but fell silent as Ghost Fleet ships decloaked in high orbit, their presence suddenly visible on every Imperial sensor. The message was clear. This was not a negotiation, but a chance for redemption. Your empire stands because we choose to show mercy, Admiral Song said. But our mercy comes with conditions. Accept the protocols. Change your ways, or we will remember Hana differently. The Emperor rose from his throne, descending the crystalline steps for the first time in living memory. He approached the hologram of Hana, studying the child's smile, seeing perhaps for the first time the true cost of imperial arrogance. We accept, he said finally. The Hana protocols will become imperial law. The changes began immediately. Imperial commanders were required to study human history, to understand why killing a child had awakened such terrible vengeance. New safeguards were put in place, requiring multiple verifications before any military action could be taken against civilian targets. But more importantly, the Empire began to change its fundamental way of thinking. The humans had proven that technological superiority meant nothing without the wisdom to use it properly. The Empire had stopped growing, stopped innovating, stopped questioning its own assumptions, and had nearly been destroyed as a result. As Admiral Song prepared to leave the throne room, the Emperor asked one final question. Why mercy? Why not destroy us completely? Song looked back at Hana's image, still floating in the Grand Chamber. Because that's not what she would have wanted. Hana died helping her father grow food, creating, not destroying. We honor her memory not through vengeance, but through justice. The Hana Protocols became the foundation of a new era in galactic history. The Empire learned that true strength lay not in weapons or technology, but in the capacity to admit mistakes and change for the better. And on 1,000 worlds, children of all species grew up learning the story of a human girl whose death had transformed an empire, not through destruction, but through humanity's greatest power, the ability to show mercy while demanding justice.